Morning, everyone. This is Julie McDonald with Microcom Technologies, and I'd like to thank all of you for attending today's webinar with Fanvil. Today's host is Tommy Lee, and he'll be presenting today. If anyone has any questions, please submit them in the question box, and Tommy will answer them at the end of today's presentation. Tommy, thank you so much for being with us again today. You're such a great friend, and Fanvil is such a wonderful product. We're happy to have you. So if you're ready, sir, please go ahead and take it on over.
Thank you for the great introduction, Julie. I appreciate the nice introduction. For everybody, I want to thank you very much for your time today. Today, I have a brief presentation to really give you a high-level overview of some of the new products that we are bringing out to the marketplace in 2024 that kind of focuses a little bit on the senior and nursing call type stations. We've been hearing lots of feedback from many of the resellers and integrators that we've been visiting throughout many shows, and we keep on getting this feedback stating, hey, we need a specialized communication tool. And so Fanvil decided to really put our minds to it and come up with a couple of products that I think you might find compelling if you do deploy into the senior market or retirement market, or perhaps a nurse calling station in many different healthcare. So with that in mind, I'm going to go forward and kind of present what we're going to have. Many people who are online may not have heard of Fanvil before, even though our brand name is growing rapidly within our marketplace. Not everybody's familiar with it. I'll spend a slide or two just to kind of go over it. And in addition to that, I'll also provide, an overview of our healthcare solutions that we can go over, and got a lot of different optionals. And what really makes it special is the optional accessories, which really separate what our solutions do relative to many of the other competitors that are out there in the marketplace. So with that stated, let's go over a quick profile and actually who we are. For many of the people who have been watching these, you probably know who Fanvil is, but this is a brief overview. One of the things that you'll be noticing on Fanvil and Linkville, we actually own factories, and we're a manufacturer of IoT products and AV products, which mean they're audio, video, and far as all the IoT is really the endpoints on where the end user goes ahead and actually touches the technology that gain access to unified communications. And depicted by this map, not only do we have factories in China, but we also have factories that are based outside of China, in Vietnam as well, so that we have a real diversified manufacturing portfolio that build all of our products. Our products as well are really divided into two brand names. We have Fanvil, which is really what I call the parent company, and sub to Fanvil, we actually have Linkville. And Linkville is a sub-brand of Fanvil that is dedicated to our expanding marketplace and addressing wireless solutions. Many of the items that I'm talking about today will all fall under Fanvil, but in moving forward, you're going to see Linkville subcategory in our wireless product grow, and you'll end up seeing some of the solution sets that'll be associated with that growing moving forward. Back in 2023, last year, we've been in the marketplace for 22 years. Many people have never heard of us, thinking that we're such a small shop. We're not. We're actually a big manufacturer who's actually built SIP endpoint products, and all of our products are developed based around SIP endpoints. And so we have a staff of about a little under 400 units, and we actually have really well over 1,000 plus, VARs, partners all throughout the world, and we address a whole global market, not only for North America, but we address nearly everything around the globe. We've built over 2 million endpoints sold in 2023, and the thing that we're happy with is that our RMA rate is really at 0.36 overall and going lower. So all of these trends are really growing in the right way, and that it says a lot about us in terms of our manufacturing capability. Now, when you look at our product portfolio, I want you to focus in on the bottom three pillars here. The bottom three pillars really could be divided by three separate categories. One is the SIP security industry products, which is actually comprised of many outdoor intercoms, door access units, ceiling IP speakers, as well as some introduction of some healthcare units that I'm going to talk about soon. A real core center pillar is really our SIP phones. These are not analog phones that fit on POT lines. These are actual SIP phones that connect using, Cat5 or Cat6 cables that are typically a main backbone of many people's networks. And you can connect all three of these phones. We actually have business phones, which is our core marketplace. But in addition to the business phones, we also have hospitality phones that address the hospitality marketplace. And something that we'll also see coming up is a healthcare phone that I'm going to talk about in just a few minutes. Coupling that is the Linkville wireless products. It's not a focus of our product solutions, but we have really Wi-Fi phones that have come out in both industrial as well as office units. Some Wi-Fi gateways that will enable any SIP phone to contact somebody with a walkie-talkie, coupled with a wireless video conferencing system. All under the Linkville currently right now that's available today. And eventually in the future, you're going to see this block grow just as big as our SIP security, as well as our SIP endpoints. So our concentration for this seminar is really this highlight, where in the red box, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I call the senior living or what we call a big button phone. We thought about marketing and saying, what do we call this? I mean, everybody calls us and says, I need a big button phone. I need a big button phone for the senior community. Well, it just so happens we actually developed one. What makes it very unique about this big button phone is that it's really one of the first SIP phones that have come out. Many of the senior phones that you see on television commercials and things that are available today are all analog that fit on old POTS lines. So what we've developed is really a SIP endpoint that'll meet many of the SIP requirements that are the prevalent UC requirement today on the cloud-based or on-prem PBX providers that are in the marketplace. I'll talk about how we differentiate here. But in addition to that, we've also introduced a nurse calling station as well that is really put together to aim towards providing some of the capabilities in a nurse calling environment or any hospital environment that one wants to put a place in to really page a nursing station or security, depending on what you want to do. So having stated that, I want to talk about the local tools that are available and access to you. Again, Fanvil is a little bit different because we've actually invested resources locally in North America to be able to find and provide local tech support. We actually have a person by the name of Hector who is available throughout the Northern, and he can actually support people who are just merging into our technology, and is a great resource in being able to bridge the gap for people who want to jump the gap from going from POT analog into the SIP marketplace. And then you have myself. I'm based locally on the West Coast as well in San Ramon, California, and I handle North America along with my colleagues that are in China as well. So I try to be your local contact in case you have any channel-based or really high-level solution-based type of understanding. So that's really what describes that as an overview. Now let's talk about our particular healthcare solutions. First is what we call the big button IP phone. We couldn't find a better word for it, so we might as well be very direct about it. Obviously, not only are these big buttons larger, that's targeted for the senior community, but we've also made very large function keys, because with these function keys, you're capable of actually putting in pictures of their grandchildren or their kids or their brothers and sisters, what have you, so that you can actually cut and paste their pictures here under a 2-SIP line phone that's really put together. In addition to the big buttons, we've also accommodated braille dots as well in case they have access and want to have, issues touching the buttons. So we have doing that. But coupling with these things, we've also incorporated GigE as well as color interface, as well as wideband codec to be able to support all the high-level functions that most people expect from a Fanvil phone. Now, having done that, we've actually put together this unit to really sit there. These are wall mountable as well as desk mountable. The wall mount box is something that we provide as an auxiliary accessory. So if you need something that's wall mountable, we can go ahead and provide that. And it gives everything that you would need in a senior home, in addition to enhanced audio, which makes the audio a bit louder than normal, just in case they have challenges in hearing as well. With that in mind, I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about healthcare intercoms. Very often people don't need a full phone, but they do need sort of a small box so that they can call and provide, a red, green, or a yellow key so that it gives the nursing station an idea of what type of help that person needs. Whether it supports all of the major features like HD audio, but this also provides the ability to support Wi-Fi as well. So if you actually have voltage into these particular connection boxes, you can actually connect this into the Wi-Fi system and be able to use that as well. In addition to this, we also have a standalone unit that is the 501W, or we have one that has a tail. And what this tail does is that in many stations, you might have a tilting bed. And what you can do is you can actually have this tail right above your shoulder in case you put this in a mounting situation besides the bed. If you decide to incline up, you have something right over your shoulder to be able to give you access onto these type of things. In addition, we also put antibacterial material on it so that we know it's been touched by many different people. So it contains the plastics that can really resist bacteria as much as possible. Now, you might see many of these nursing call stations that are around, but here is kind of where we differ. And I'll talk about what our accessories are moving forward in the next few slides. Let's look under the station of the nurse call station. People say, hey, what's going on? You look at number 1, 2, and 3. This is about as technical as it gets, but there's an Ethernet connection here. So if you happen to have a Cat5 or Cat6 cable, you could basically plug it in the back of this unit right here if you have an RJ45 interface. The nice thing too is that number 2, it even has a power interface. If you don't have wires connected to it, but you have legacy power, it will accept a 12-volt, 1-amp input separately just by these connectors here. And looking at 3, 4, and 5, it actually contains very important relays that you can go ahead and set up, which I'm going to talk about when you want to add accessories to these type of units moving forward. So this is kind of how it looks like in the background. It's a very simple unit that really provides all the necessary means for any patient to be able to get contact with the nurse's station. Now let's talk about our differentiation, how we talk about our accessories. One of the real nice things that fit in both the phone as well as the intercom that I just talked about are really our wireless keys. Now this wireless key is very important because the KT10 and the KT20, this is just something that you could hang around your neck because you're not always going to be by your phone. You could be walking across the room or across the hall. You could end up tripping if you can. And then what you can do is you can press this SOS key either around your neck, or you can mount a 1-button key that will give a person the ability to be able to push a large button to call for help. And you can have this extra button to really connect either to the phone or to the intercom to set off, an alarm or a nurse's call station to say, hey, somebody needs help here. And the great thing about the KT10 and the KT20, it is batteryless. And what we mean by that, it's batteryless, is it actually uses the pressing ability, the kinetic energy that people use to push the button or push the key, and that will enable really like a 75-foot indoors up to over 100 feet, depending on what the range is from the phone or from the unit, and that will be able to give a call to the nursing station to say, hey, I need some help here, and you could program really the help key on the phone, or you can contact the red key on the actual intercom, depending on how you want to do it. And the great thing about it being batteryless is that the maintenance level is 0. So what you have here is, I only recognize, the best analogy I could think about is a color TV remote control. I never realized that remote control is out of batteries until it doesn't work anymore. You don't want to have that happen in the healthcare station because you want to be able to press it and have it work and not worry about maintenance schedules so that you have to refresh your batteries every few months or so. And that's a great key point here, and it's a real differentiator on the Fanvil solutions. On the KT30, this is does contain a battery, and it actually has a pull cord that you could put in the bathroom. This one does contain a battery, but the battery that actually is hooked into it is reliable for up to about 10,000 pulls or something. So the reliability is extremely high in all these situations. In case you don't have a button and you want something that's easy to reach out and pull, everything will be there. And the way it transmits its ability is through the open 433 megahertz wireless button. So it uses that frequency. It is not a Wi-Fi frequency or a Bluetooth capability. It uses its own frequency that's used to go ahead and connect to the associated phones. Speaking with a little bit more detail, with the no battery options, both of these can really connect to either the the Y series or the X305 series phones right here. The good thing about it is that even with the Y series intercoms and the X305 phones, you can pair up to 10 of these buttons, so you can have one of these around your neck and several of these scattered throughout the room depending on what your specific needs are, or you could connect it elsewhere. But this kind of gives you the range. On the operating range, on the typical indoor, it could range anywhere from 12 to 25 meters or up to 75 feet, for example, right, on indoors. And that's assuming that you have a lot of metal glass and doors in between many different ways. But if you have an open environment where everything is open, the range is really tripled in many cases, so that depending on what your indoor situation is, this range can go as far as deck phones, to give you an idea for people with wireless solutions. So it really depends on what your internal situation is. And for a battery solution, we have this pull cord, which is the KT3. The idea here is very, very low battery consumption, and you could actually support not only 10, it's actually up to 100,000 times, so that really once you put it in, you could almost change it once a year, depending on how often you pull it. We hope it never gets pulled in any emergencies, but when it does happen, it's really highly rated so that the maintenance is extremely low. Now, how do you go ahead and pair something like this? I want to kind of show this video that we actually have here that you can actually show this. And this kind of shows a 10 pair button here that you can actually show. And what we do here is that you can actually click a binding key that's on the right-hand side. And once you click that binding key, when it's pairing, you can click the actual N key along with it, and that N key will pair up with that specific function key, and you can pair up to 10 separate keys, at least with the X305, and each one will have unique code, so that if I were to be in my neighbor's room, I could actually click on my key and will only kick off the intercom or the phone that's actually located in my room, and each one really operates in its own separate way. Now, oops, this is a quick definition on how it's actually done. You can actually look at it. This is a video that will actually describe how it is. So you can look at the screen, click binding, and once you click binding, you can take that and you click it, and what it has, you have this unique code that it comes up with this address ID, and then you can really declare the type of thing. You could have a dial number, and it gives you these things. You could assign whatever value you can. You click apply. Now all of a sudden you specifically assigned the function key, and every time you push that button, you end up clicking off a function key that can do that right away, which is a great feature. So I trust that way to pair it is very simple, it's very straightforward, and nearly probably anybody who can pair up a wireless thing, you can also do that. Now, coupling with that remote key, we also have corridor lights that can actually light up in red, green, or blue, depending on how you want to set it up. And the great news is that in many retirement communities, you might have a hallway that goes down, and that even though one presses it, it's not always obvious, and that now you can have this light that appears on top of their room, that as you go by, you could actually see the person, you could actually visually see if somebody's actually calling a person just by the light that's in the room as well, and you can attract it. It's similar to how you contact a flight attendant when you push a button on a plane. They know exactly who's actually calling, and you can go right to that aisle. The same thing that could happen on the corridor light. When I showed that under the hood slide, under the intercom, it actually contains some relays so that when you push the relay, you can actually trigger this light to light up, for example, as a way of saying, hey, somebody in this room needs some help, and then you can call somebody passively that somebody needs help. When they look down the line, they know exactly what room to go to. Now, when you have all of the endpoints within the patient's or the end consumer room, you actually have to have a central phone that you can actually put in at the central nurse's desk or the security desk. We have both. We have versions with a push button, and we also have some new ones with a touch screen as well. We actually have an A32i, which the only difference is it doesn't have an on-screen camera that's associated with. So we have one with a camera and without a camera. But the good news is that you can actually put in all of those different intercoms and work directly with this phone, so that if your communication is purely internal to the facility, then there's really no need to have an external call outside. You could have a direct connection to all of these intercoms, and that the person at the nursing station could see all the people that are calling, can identify what room it is or what station it is, and could respond accordingly. So this is the touchscreen version, and this is the wired screen version if they prefer to see the different caller IDs based on buttons and things like that. So all of these contain 106 keys, and this one contains 112 keys. A lot of different varieties depending on what your specific rooms are going to be, and you can actually control everything under one spot. Here's some more detail about it. I'm not going to go over all the interesting details. This is available for your reference. I'll give a copy to Julie of Microcom if you want to go ahead and ask for her for a copy of this. But these provide a really soft key so that if someone were to give a call, you would actually have it show up on this station, and you actually have push button handset to be able to talk to the person that's calling in a room to find out what the situation really is, coupled with a light that will give you a light sensor if that's something that you wish as well. Now let's move into the next type of options as well. Along with our offering, we actually have indoor stations, which is really a plasma screen. Now, the nice thing that we're starting to enhance about these plasma screens is that we actually have the indoor wireless buttons that you can have working with these indoor screens. What's the great advantage? Is that you can have this coupled onto a wall, and as I mentioned on the phone before, you can actually see the nurse that's answering the call, so that it's not purely just an audio thing. You can actually see the nurse or somebody that's speaking to, so it provides a more personal view, and you can click off a touch screen relay here that will do the same thing as what the hard square intercom is. So these things are beginning enhancements in how we're enhancing these lines. So if you don't have those type of needs, we also have some other things as well. So say, for example, if you wanted to have a camera inside of the patient's room, you can view the i10SV, which actually has a camera here. But the unfortunate thing is that this camera doesn't support the wireless access keys. If you feel that you just need a simple button and that you don't need the wireless access keys, but you do need video, then this is an option that you might want to consider, because then you can actually push this, and the person at the nurse's station can actually see what's going on in the room or the person's face on the other end. So like I said, we have the ability to provide not only audio but video communications both ways if possible. And so it really provides a capability of providing the nursing calls, the optional arms, as well as remote keys, giving the most flexibility and protection for the people that you're trying to manage within your facility. That's kind of it from a perspective that I want to do, and I'll turn the microphone and screen back to Julie, and I can address any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Tommy, for that great presentation. And yes, I do have some audience questions for you.
Yep.
Let's get started with the first one. Let's see here. Can you tell us about what security measures are implemented in your IoT products?
When you say security, by definition, all of the products that I just described are communicate via SIP, right? Now, under SIP, you can actually have SIP alone, I believe, has its own security protocol. I'm not the security expert, but I do know that SIP by definition has the ability to support OpenVPN as well as other types of standard security between the SIP communications devices, so that they're not really open, they're not like an open field where everybody can read the different communications that go across. So it uses SIP as well as the security that's associated with SIP. I think they call it like TLC or some other SIP security. But as an option, some people may want to invoke OpenVPN as a type of communication that is available. I have to double check if it's available on these units back and forth, but I know it's used on a lot of standard SIP protocols.
Excellent. Thank you, Tommy. Next question here. How do you ensure the reliability of your products in critical solutions, or excuse me, situations?
Well, I mean, reliability, when you think about these phones as well as these intercoms, they are as reliable as the infrastructure. So all of them depend on, just as a phone, assuming that the wire that the power never falls down. Usually most hospitals and facilities have a backup plan. And the good news is that these backup plans can back up batteries, but as far as these endpoints are concerned, as I shown really on the first slide, our return material is well below 1%. I mean, once these things are running, they could typically run in the background and be there on standby, depending on how you want to go ahead and do that. In terms of just standard warranties are concerned, I mean, we provide a 2-year warranty on all of our products right out of the factory, and that's something that you can do. But once these things go beyond 2 years and sitting on the wall, they sit there as reliable as refrigerators. I mean, these things go on for a long time, well beyond what most people can work with. And if you want to refresh the phones after 10 plus years, that's something you can optionally do, but phones don't necessarily break down that often. If they sit down and used, if they're not abused or anything like that, they could, their reliability is as good as any office phones that you find in your office building.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tommy. A few more questions here.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Are there APIs available for your developers to integrate your products with other softwares?
Yeah, I've actually had that. I'll have to take a look at the APIs of our products. I mean, you can have it work with. One of the things I wanted to mention is that I'll have to take an action to see if whether or not these products themselves have an open API, because these things do integrate. Take, for example, in our hospitality market, it integrates with the whole back end of many of the financial management systems on billing and all of these things in the background. And these units aren't necessarily the same. They're identical in terms of how they're built to our hospitality market, because and even in that unit, they're put together on how to charge per line, how things are logged. You can interface with these things, and to give you an idea, those indoor stations that I talked about that actually has a screen, some of those are actually Android based, and because they're Android based, you can put in whatever Android or APX type of application on those screens and have it work as well. So the answer is yes, it does have the capability, but I'll have to actually find a document that actually shows that API. I suggest them maybe reach out to you or me. You could send me a contact information, Tommy, Tommy.lee, Lee at fanvil.com, and I'll be more than happy to pursue any documents that will help your backend software interface with ours as well.
Thank you so much for that, Tommy. Next question here. How do your devices, specifically the X305, handle firmware updates and patches?
Okay, that's a good question. Depending on, now, we have a device management system, which is actually shown here, in fact. In addition to our things, one of the items here is that we have a device management system here that you can have, and this is a cloud-based management system, so that you can actually see and program any one of these devices, including our security devices here and here, onto here, and you can actually manage each individual device, be able to do remote reboots, software upgrades, even configuration upgrades, all from this. And this is a service that we provide to all of our partners free of charge. And that's not something that we do. So that's what we do have a tool that are out there. For those that want to use third-party PBXs, if you want to use a PBX onto it, then we're also compatible with a lot of the major PBXs out there, and being able to provide provisioning tools that will allow you to incorporate configuration files onto the SIP phone, the 305, and have it deploy as well. So it depends on what you want to work with. And you could send me the idea and who you have, and I can give you sort of a menu on saying, the best deployment method. If it doesn't have any, we actually have a device management system here that's capable of doing that.
Thank you so much for that, Tommy. Next question here is regarding AI. And if this applies, to Fanvil, the question is, how are you planning to improve the integration of AI in your devices?
Well, artificial intelligence, I can't say we have gotten that far yet as far as an endpoint device is concerned. Now, I understand that many people on the PBX side, which is if they have a switch, now we're getting into like a UC environment, and many people are incorporating the UC environment into it. Very often what happens is that they may use our endpoints, the Fanvil endpoints, as really a tool to transmit their verbal requests. They may use our tool to call up and saying, excuse me, AI master, can you tell me, what the forecast is going to be next week? That's a very simple problem, but they could put out an artificial intelligence request that might be able to be answered. So the intelligence wouldn't reside in our endpoints in the phone itself, but it would reside in whatever main tool that it's existed with. And that main switch can contain the AI information, and we're just basically the endpoint, the IoT endpoint that the person talks into, but can use it to transmit their vocal or perhaps even their keypad input, so that AI can read and write depending on what the end user decides to use. They could use DTMF tones on the keypad, or they can command it via a vocal command, as you see fit. One of the big things that are leading into are cars, and very often you might have AI that's starting to merge into vehicles, and yet very much the central intelligence of the AI within vehicles is centrally located in some high CPU located server somewhere, and that the car is actually the vehicle that transmits that and can do the interpretation on a central server. Ours is almost the same way. All of our endpoints here can serve as that vehicle to transmit the AI command.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Tommy. Last question here for you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us what trends in healthcare technology do you see influencing future product development?
Well, I mean, there's going to be a big growth in the retirement community. There's a big baby boomer, generation that's sort of seeking senior care and all of the things that are associated with senior care. People like retirement communities are popping up everywhere, and we're actually hearing a lot of projects that are being built. Most of the endpoint products is what we end up building is all POTS related, so that they're all related to the 2-pin wires, the POTS lines that really exist in many of the homes. Back when I was growing up, everybody had a phone in the kitchen, but many of these lines now are all being transitioned into mobile phones where people carry it, or they're on an actual network where they're using Cat5 and Cat6 cables connecting to a whole UC operation. And that's what we've done. We've actually developed an endpoint, whether it's a phone, an intercom, or an indoor station here connected to a device, all using the latest upgraded technology. So if they decided to deploy an IP-based solution, we have the endpoints that are ready to do a direct connection to these points.
Tommy, thank you so much for answering all of those questions for us today. We greatly appreciate it. And thank you to everyone for attending today's webinar. And if anyone has any further questions, as Tommy mentioned, he can absolutely follow up with anything. Please feel free to contact your sales rep and email us at sales@microcomtech.com. And if you wish to view any of the products mentioned or shown today, please visit us at www.microcom.us. And also remember, this presentation has been recorded and will be uploaded to our Microcom YouTube channel so we can view it again. Tommy, have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for sharing all of this information and answering our questions like I mentioned. Everybody, have a fantastic day.
Pleasure for your time. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye now.
Take care. Bye-bye.